Okay, good afternoon, Niles, and thanks for tuning in this afternoon for Niles Voice of Business. This live stream features interviews with local business owners, professionals, and village representatives to provide resources and insights for the businesses of Niles. Today, we're joined by Joe Campagna, who's a representative from Grant Merchant Services. Joe, welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Alicia. Very excited to talk to you and everybody else in Niles.
Yay. So let's start with the definition of what is merchant services. So although our business owners might be familiar with that term, I'm guessing our consumers are not.
Right. So when we put the credit card into the machine or into the website or however we go to pay with our credit or debit card, the companies that process that yes or no, that green light, red light of you do or don't have money, you can purchase or get what you're trying to do, that's merchant services. So it's the businesses and nonprofits or anyone who is looking to take a credit or debit payment. There's a whole industry around this. It is rooted in the banking industry, but not all of these companies are banks.
Okay, so it's not always my bank that's taking care of it.
No, and oftentimes smaller community banks are working with larger companies. They're called acquirers, and larger ones like Chase and Bank of America. This is a business of theirs, and it's a big one, and they're very big. But the largest company is not a bank of in any traditional sense, where you could go and get an ATM. They're specifically built to process these payments and to handle all that goes around it for the business in that background type environment.
Excellent. Good to know. Okay, so I don't think consumers think too much about who processes credit card transactions
Right.
and how businesses get their money, because I certainly didn't.
Right.
So I suppose that's good, right? But if there was something you wanted our consumers to know or to think about, what would that be?
I think it's, if you're going in, there's two things. If you have the option to do debit and you like using debit, that's actually the least cost of a card for a business is debit, because it's considered a cash transaction. You do or don't have the money. Whereas credit is a float, obviously, that we pay monthly or when we can. And that's traditionally not considered real hard cash. The other biggest thing, and I think most business owners would really ask for this, is if you do have a problem with a transaction or with a situation with something you've purchased, call the business first. Most of them will probably do a refund or do something to make it better versus immediately going to the chargeback, where you call up the company and say, I'm not happy, I want to dispute this and all of this, because most people will typically do something. I've yet to have any of my clients, just say absolutely not. They want to know they don't like this. It also costs them money. When you do a chargeback before anything is resolved, whatever your transaction is pulled from their bank account. So if it was large or small, it's gone. And then there's going to be a fee anywhere from, $15 to $20 or $25 that they're going to pay to now deal with this. And if they win, they're still out $20 to $25. So sometimes they might not even fight it because it's not worth
Sure.
transaction. But it's also just, I think most business owners, especially ones in Niles and ones that that you're possibly going to do this with, want to make it better. If it's a large faceless organization that you can't find someone to help you, fine. But I think if you're going to be going to the local restaurant or the bike shop or the greeting card place, they're going to want to make it right, and you're going to save them time and money by doing it in that manner.
Okay. I'm going to circle back to something that you said, that if you're using your credit card, which is also a debit card, if you process it as a debit transaction, it's
Right.
less expensive for our business owners, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I just want to highlight that right now because I know we are all trying to do everything we can to help our business owners, especially our restaurants. So if you can have that processed as a debit transaction rather than a credit, it's a small thing, but it's a way we can help.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's in most respects, I would say it's close to 2 to maybe even 2.5% difference in cost, which is not small.
If I'm buying my $2 pack of gum, it's not a big deal. If I'm buying a $200 dinner, it's a big deal.
I would say if you're buying a $2 pack of gum, maybe carry a little cash. I mean,
Cash? I have to carry
It
cash?
hurts me. It hurts me personally, but maybe carry a little cash.
All right, all right. Okay, so as a consumer, I know some of my cards have points and I get things for using them. How does that
Yes.
impact the retailer?
So this is where businesses don't like taking credit cards because they're just like, why are there these fees and why are they so expensive? And the biggest part of my job with new clients or clients in general is demystifying all of that. It's talking through why they're paying it, and it's not 5%. It's not necessarily even 3%. Sometimes it's lower, but it could be 3%. And the biggest thing that people start to understand is the more points and benefits that you're getting for your card, the higher the cost to the merchant. So if you're wondering who's paying for all of these points, it's not the bank, it's not United, it's not Chase, it's the person that you're using that card with. So when you go to get groceries at Mariano's, Mariano's is paying for your points. If you're going to Cappy's to have lunch, Cappy's is giving you your points. So that's really where a lot of this comes in. And if, we got rid of points and checking cost money, that's almost the alternative. Like if you get rid of a lot of these benefits to credit cards, there will be costs on the consumers, and nobody wants that. But I think that's when people need to understand that there's a variety of spectrum of cards and costs, but the points are being borne by the cost of the merchant. They're the ones who are letting you fly free and go to all these places.
Yeah. So I may be okay using that high points card with Amazon, but I might not want to use that when I go to Graziano's.
I mean, it's up to you. I'm just saying, when you go, just know that, you should be nice to them. Maybe give, the server an extra tip.
Yeah.
Don't charge back, call for a refund. All of that is where it is. And for the business owners, when they wonder, why is it that way? Why are my costs what they are? It's because you're paying for the points. And my clients vary. Like I've had clients where their effective rate of their cost is very low because people traditionally are using debit in their location. And whereas others, they're a spa and they have people who just only have high point cards and there's nothing they can do. They're just going to get stuck because those are the cards coming in. Sure. It could be a variety of, costs. It's all based on the card that the merchant is taking for that purchase.
Okay. So I'm going to put my chamber hat back on and stop thinking from a consumer point of view.
Okay.
That we've talked about this, that credit card processing is a bit near and dear to my heart because at one of my previous chambers, I had agreed not to change anything for the first year. So after that first year, I started looking a little more closely at how much we were paying for credit card processing, and it was a bit outrageous.
Right.
So my message to all business owners is pay attention to those monthly statements. Can you, Joe, tell us a little bit more? We've talked a little about fees to our merchants, but tell us a little bit more about those processing fees that our merchants pay.
So exactly. I would definitely read your statement. I like to send them by paper so that merchants have them in hand. Most large acquirers or people like me will have an online portal. You can do it that way. But you should look at it for a couple of reasons. You want to know that your fees haven't changed without your knowledge. You want to know that you're not getting dinged a penalty for non-PCI compliance, which can be $50 to $70 a month. And if you don't catch that for a year, you've just spent $600 to $800 for no reason. So you want to make sure that you're checking your statements. In terms of the costs, there's really three things four, let's call it four. There's a monthly cost that you're going to see that's typically flat. It's for service, it's for support and PCI compliance, which is security of knowing the way you process is secure. And that should be a flat fee of, let's argue, $10 to $20, depending on the technology you're using. And that number won't move. The numbers that are going to kind of fluctuate are these credit card costs. And, I mentioned that there's the point cards, but there's, let's call it the biggest bucket of those fees is going to the issuing bank and the, company issuing these cards. So if Chase and United or, an airline are doing a points card, the majority of the money will go to them, and that's per Visa, MasterCard rules. The next bucket is going to be to Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Amex for their assessments and what they need, what they're charging to make their systems work. And then the last part is someone like me or the other acquirer that you might be using who's facilitating this payment. We're helping you do the payments. We're doing all the accounting. We're moving money around. There's an authorization cost that says, yes, no, there's money. And then once the money starts to flow, that's when the percentages take over. So, there's ways to mitigate some of that. You should be batching every day, but those costs are coming and the majority of it is going to the bank that issues this card. And within the Visa MasterCard world, if you're wondering how many potential charges could there be, within those two alone, there are 600 to 700 categories of card types. So it's staggering.
Yeah.
In the assessment side, what I've noticed, one of the interesting weird things I've noticed lately is that there are companies that will make assessments look very, very legitimate, and they're not. I had a new client that we quoted, and it looked like they were basically paying $20 to $25 for fees that I did not know what they were. So we were able to take that out because the company I work with does not do this. And we can highlight, and I can show you, I've got a little fee chart and it says, these are the assessments. If these aren't there, then this is nonsense. So, it's watching all of that, it's seeing it, and most merchants aren't going to know it because, it takes me some time to look through and see it, and I've been doing this for 14 years. So, the fees can be confusing, and I think you need to have someone that you can trust and someone that you can talk to, that you feel comfortable with, where you can leave that conversation going, okay, I know there's going to be a cost, and I'm comfortable with that cost is with the company, the card types that I'm getting. And, I feel that because I know that most merchants, if they're watching this, are going to say, I get 5 calls a week. And all of my clients say that. And I don't lose a lot of them because one of the biggest things I like to do is educate them. Because my father told me long ago, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And if someone's promising you a deal, I've told a lot of people, get it in writing, show it to me, and I'll be the first one to tell you to sign it. But it's not going to happen.
So how do these fees vary? Oh, now I got feedback. How do these fees vary from one processor to the next?
In theory, they should not. Whether you're with one of the top 5 acquirers, and those are very large, billions of dollars in transactions. There's not a lot. There shouldn't be any difference in the interchange cost with the type of card, whether you use it with me, you use it with another bank, or you use it with another acquirer. Those interchange costs are flat and solid. That's kind of the floor. The assessments are the same way. The variance is what someone like me charges to facilitate that payment. There could also be some, differences in costs based on how you're processing. Are you using a machine? Is it mobile? Is it a website? But even within that, there shouldn't be huge differences. It's pretty regulated. I mean, if you're paying a batch fee today to batch your money, which means at the end of the day, you say, give me the $1,000 I charge today, you shouldn't be paying that. I could charge you, but that's just extra money for me. And those are the things that we don't do. My dad started the business. We've never done that, and we have no plans to. So it's things like that you want to see, but within the realm of, let's say you went to Bank of America, you went to Chase, you went to WorldPay, you went to Elavon and Grant Merchant, the difference should be the person and maybe the technology that you're working with.
Okay. So I think I've already heard this, but tell me what's special about Grant Merchant Services.
So there's a couple things. We don't charge any contracts. So if you sign with us, you're not stuck with Joe as your worst new best friend for 3 years. If things go wrong and you go out of business, or things go wrong and you decide to stop taking credit cards, there's no penalties. Your son, daughter, friend, uncle, brother, whomever gets in the business and you want to support them, you can. So we don't charge contracts. I try to be fairly transparent with our pricing and educate our clients. And I think there's also a human element that at one point, I would say about maybe 10 years ago in business, where it's like, I want to automate everything and I don't want to talk to a human. But when you have a question and you have to explain it to that non-human automated response, it's now a thing. And with us, a lot of my clients will email or they will call, or some of them will text and say, hey, this is what's going on. And I can say, okay, send me a screenshot or whatever, and I'll take care of it. My job is to do what I do. Your job is to go do your business. And it shouldn't be placed on hold and that sort of thing. And that's kind of the ethos we've always had. Where you should do what you're good at, and I'm going to do what I'm good at. And that's all we do. I'm not going to try and, sell you a checking account. I'm not going to give you a loan. We don't do that. Some do. I can get you equipment and that sort of thing, but I'm doing one thing and I'm doing it as best as I think we can. And I'm not going to try and get you to do other stuff. That's just not who we are.
Good to know. So has COVID impacted the credit card processing business?
Yes and no. It's interesting. Like that first couple of months, processing that I saw from my clients, and we have an array of clients. We have business to business, we have business to consumers. The volume dipped a little because people were home and people weren't shopping and people were nervous. And then things kind of went back to where they were in terms of volumes. The differences have been that people are now looking to say, okay, this is how I process. Am I as efficient as I should be? Am I doing level 2, level 3, which is big in the business to business world? Is there a way for me to save on these points cards? And there are. Not everybody can, because it's, again, if you take those cards, you can. You have a question, call me. And then it's also, businesses are starting to think about, do I want to pass the fee on to my customers? Do I want to pay this, or do I want to charge my customers 3.5% or 4% to, take this cost off of me, which is now completely legal. You need to make sure you're doing it compliantly because, as I mentioned, debit is cash and then there's credit. You can't surcharge debit. So whatever you're doing or however you're doing it, you need to have the technology that can differentiate between the two. And it's out there. It's very easy. So I would say business owners are trying to see, where can I save every penny? That's a big one, but it's also a shift in mentality of how you do business. We have some clients who do it. They have not seen business change. People understand that there is a cost to this. The question is do they want to do it that way? And merchants get nervous about that, but I'm like, they can still give you money. Like, they can give you cash. They can pay with a check. You could do ACH. Like, you're not telling them this is the only way they can pay. Or they can pay with a debit card. So there's alternatives. It's not the only thing. It's not 3.5% on all payments. And people have started to really understand that. So, so it has and it hasn't. The other big thing is that there were rules changes coming, and it happens twice a year from Visa, MasterCard, and they kind of regulate the industry. There were rules changes in last April that got pushed to next April. And some cards are going to start to cost the cost from Interchange, from the issuing bank, 3.5%. There's ways to mitigate that, but the spectrum of these costs are starting to move upwards. They're not going down unless you're strictly paying with debit, but the credit and the points is going up. So that's something that's coming. That's something I'm talking to my customers about and to new people and saying, hey, do you take these cards? What can we do to mitigate that and bring that back down? Because there are things you can do, but I don't want to say it's technical, but it's detailed, and my world's confusing enough, and it's better to have that conversation one-on-one.
Got it. And so if somebody wanted, a consultation with you, they could reach out to you at this number. You can evaluate what they're currently paying, let them know if you can save them money.
Right. And honestly, that's the one thing, since I've been doing this, that I enjoy the most, whether you become a client or you don't. Some people just want peace of mind. You can call, you can go to the website, you can go to the chamber site and get our email. And all I need is a statement from a reliable month, right? Like, don't give me the statement where you did $1,000 versus the one where you did 100,000. Not that that happens or that's that big of a swing, but give me 1 or 2 months and we can take a look and say, okay, here's what it looks like. And I've had clients, who've transferred just because they didn't like the person or the service they were getting. And it was purely the human, but there was no savings involved. And then there's others where, depending on the volumes, we're able to save thousands of dollars. Typically for most smaller businesses, if you can save anywhere from $500 to $1,000, which is anywhere from $50 to $70 a month, that's huge. And it can come in a variety of ways. It's really taking a look kind of like a doctor with the x-ray and doing the diagnostic tests and saying, this is how healthy or how unhealthy this is. And that's what we can do. And I also say this where, once we have this conversation and I have others who will do it who will comp to this, I'm not going to become your new stalking friend. So I'm happy to be the resource. I'm happy to be there by email. I'll check in every so often and let you know if there's a way that you do things that you should be aware of. But, I'm happy to be that support.
Excellent. Okay, bear with me 1 second, because as most of you know by now, I'm alone in the office, and we just had a delivery come in that I needed to sign for. Sorry about that. Okay, and we are just about ready to wrap up. Joe, we like to finish with where is your favorite place to eat in Niles? And I know you are quite a foodie, so I can't wait to hear the answer to this.
I'm going to give you two, actually. So the Chicken Inn, my mother, whenever we had like parties, would always get how big a tray it was, but there was always Chicken Inn. And we can argue, is it fried, is it roasted? It's delicious. So don't worry about it. Just order the chicken and get it. And since we moved out of the city, we've gotten it, and my kids love it. So I love the Chicken Inn. It's not only good for dinner, but it's also great for parties, and everybody's happy because who doesn't like seeing fried chicken at a party? The other one is near and dear because I went to Notre Dame High School, is Cappy's. So I love a good diner. And I love, in Chicago, I think it's a diner, but it's also those Greek restaurants. And when you say that to somebody in their 40s, they've got one or two that they went to in high school, and Cappy's was, one of the ones that we always ended up at. And it's just great. Like, you can get good food, and you don't have to worry, if somebody wants breakfast or somebody wants dinner or somebody just wants soup.
There you go. Get whatever you want.
Yeah, and George is great. Like, he runs a great restaurant. We've had events there. So I like that place because, sometimes I don't know what I want, and I go in and I look at the menu and it's like, today's patty melt day, or I'm going to do pancakes for lunch because I'm an adult and I can. So I would say Chicken Inn and Cappy's. Great. I can't wait
Good
for us
to know.
to go back into restaurants and do this someday. But,
someday soon, I hope.
Someday it's almost like Lazy Mr. Rob. Someday more, and I'm not about to sing on this, but yeah, it's you got to find the joy, and I think that will be a small one when we can all have that sense of normalcy of going in somewhere and doing that, or if you're old enough, going in and just sitting at a bar watching whatever Chicago team drive you insane with a beer. We're all
and having somebody else make my drink for me, please.
Exactly. Why can't I get this martini or gimlet correct?
Exactly. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alicia.
Niles, have a great day.